I think that the divine lives in every human being. I think that. We all came from oneness, source. We came from singularity. We came from pure love, where there's no separation. Everybody in this room has done something great. And all they did was they decided on what that future was they wanted to live by, and they made a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that choice carried a level of energy that caused their body to respond to their mind. We gotta go from philosopher to initiate to master, from knowledge to experience to wisdom, from mind to body to soul, from thinking to doing to being, to learning it with your head, applying it with your hands, knowing it by heart, to believe, to behave, to become so conscious of your unconscious self, to know thyself so well that you don't default back to that old personality that's a set of hardwired thoughts and attitudes and beliefs. Nothing changes in our life until we change. And the only way we're going to change this world is we got to change us. People have to change. And when enough people change, I think that's the moment that who we are as a species of human beings begins to awaken. I have heard there for the longest time that there's a coming of a new consciousness, and I really believe it's not one person. I think it's a collective network, it's a collective consciousness, and there's a stigma in the world that if you leave with too much passion, you get it in the end. Every charismatic leader paid the price, but if everybody's leading, you just can't take out everybody now, can you?
My name is Duqum. I am the host of the Know Thyself Podcast, one of the many things that I do. And it's my devotion really with this show to bring forth conversations that are accessible, digestible, that can allow us to deepen our sense of knowing ourselves. I think that when we know ourselves, we're less easily controlled by outside influences. When we know ourselves, we're tapped to a power within that allows us to navigate our dharma, what our true calling is. And it's what's meant the most to me in this life. And the second best thing is to be able to share it with the world. The amount of freedom, that liberation, inner peace that comes from knowing who you are at a deep gnosis and a deep level within it's so freeing. And I think we can get caught up in thinking that our impact in life comes from all the action that we do, but can we make our presence inherently impactful by itself? And so I've been on this journey, really this curiosity to become the best version of myself and learn more about myself and know who I am at deeper and deeper levels. And I've just been sharing my curiosity with the world. So it means the most to me to be able to see all of these incredible people that are doing such powerful work in the world all come together. And thank you all for giving your most valuable resource, your time and your attention. And I hope to do my best job in stewarding this conversation today with Dr. Joe. He's been an incredible inspiration for me in my own life and my own journey. And what I want to invite everybody to do today is to not just listen with the mind and the analytical and processing it through just your ears and your eyes, but also your inner eye, and to see what can be said today that can plant a seed on fertile soil, or maybe sprout something that's already been sitting there for some time. And to listen with our whole being, not just our ears. And so see what can land within you today, within your heart, and let's get the show on the road. So, spaceship is here. We're all ready? Okay. Ready for takeoff? Our co-pilot is very well-versed in navigating the inner realm and the multidimensional reality that we live in. He is a best-selling author, a pioneer in really my eyes, emerging science and spirituality, demystifying the mystical, and really giving people access to tools to have more access to themselves and make sense of a world that has a lot going on. And he does so eloquently. So without further ado, can we please give a warm welcome to Dr. Joe Dispenza. How you doing, Joe?
Very good, very good. There's a lot of really healthy-looking people out there. You're talking to the right crowd here.
Absolutely. Where I would love to start today is the amount of individuals in this room that are on the path, right? We're all on the path, but being somebody that's made the decision to call forth their own awakening, to actively be a participant in that process, largely who we are and how we act is a habitual construct. This notion of self that we build up to who we take ourselves to be in the world, and a lot of your work is helping people break free of the chains that we've subconsciously placed on ourselves. And so in the pursuit of having more access to ourselves, in the pursuit of finding true freedom within, I would love for you to share the mission that you're on and how people can break past the memory of who they've been so they can tap into the potential of who they can be.
All right. Well, a habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times that your body actually knows how to do it better than your conscious mind. It's a habit. So people wake up in the morning and they run through the same routine every single day. And the routine is mapped out neurologically in their brain. If they have the thought of the coffee maker, they make the choice to go over there. They do the thing to make the coffee. They have the experience of drinking it, and they feel the emotion associated with it. That becomes a pattern. It becomes more automatic. It becomes second nature. So we have a series of these redundant patterns then, and in time, we lose our free will to a set of programs, and the body is programmed into the predictable future based on what we've done in the past. And that's how we lose the free will to a set of programs. So that habituation is the predictable future, and that's the known. And other people wake up in the morning and they romance their memories of the past. They think about the problems that they have in their lives, and those problems are connected to certain people and certain objects and certain things at certain times and places. And since the brain is a record of the past, the moment they remember that problem, they're thinking in the past. And every one of those problems has an emotion that's associated with it. So the moment the person feels unhappy, the moment the person feels fear, the moment the person feels unworthy, the moment the person feels sad, now the body's in the past. Because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, and how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. And so it's that thought and that feeling, it's that image or that memory and the emotion, it's that stimulus and response that's conditioning the body to become the mind of that emotion. And now the body is so objective that it does not know the difference between the real life experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that that person is creating by thought alone. And the body's reliving the same past experience over and over again. And if we can't think greater than how we feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, then we're thinking in the past. And if we believe that our thoughts have anything to do with our destiny, then our future is going to look a lot like our past. So that familiar past also is the known. And so what we discovered is that if you could teach a person to, when their body's sitting in a meditation, as an example, and it's off schedule, it's used to feeling angry at 8 o'clock in the morning because it watches the news. The person experiences traffic every day. They get 11 o'clock, they check their emails, and they start judging other people. You know, there's a set of familiar emotions that person has been living by. We discovered that if a person can sit past that memory, that they can sit past that emotion that causes them to get aroused, to get frustrated, to get impatient, that's the emotion that causes the person to quit. And they have this conclusion that they can't meditate, or they can't focus, or they have ADD. It's a story they tell themselves about the past. We discovered, though, that when a person sits past those thoughts that say, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, I need a brain scan, there's something wrong with me, it's my mother's fault. And they're curious to see what's on the other side of that thought. When their body gets aroused and frustrated, instead of giving up and saying, I have too many things to do. That they actually learn a way to settle the body back down into the present moment. And it's David versus Goliath. And every time we can become conscious that we get emotional, we get frustrated, we get impatient, and we settle the body down, we're executing a will now that's greater than the program, and the body is no longer the mind. The person is now becoming conscious of their unconscious self, and it takes an enormous amount of energy. It takes an enormous amount of awareness to stay present, because to stay present is to be in the unknown. That's when you can't predict the future, and that's not when you're remembering the past. And the unknown in the program that we have as biological creatures is a scary place. It's better to run from the unknown than to hang out in it. And yet when the person wants to quit and give up and their body wants to get up and do something and they catch themselves, that they do that and they bring their body back down into the present moment, that's a victory. And when the body gets frustrated and it wants to be the mind, and the person settles the body down, is telling the body it's no longer the mind, that it's the mind. And that's taming the animal. That's taming the animal self. And the repetition of that over time causes the body to finally start to surrender into the present moment. And there's an enormous liberation of energy that takes place in the nervous system. And they're in the unknown, and nothing scary, nothing dangerous happens to them. And all of a sudden, they can be more present in their life. And where we place our attention is where we place our energy. And when you're in the present moment, you have a lot of energy and a lot of awareness. It turns out the people who stretch themselves past that point are the people that have the most change. They're curious to see what's on the other side of what's familiar and known. And instead of, I don't know, I'm making stuff up, scrolling through TikTok, getting on the text, instead of thinking of 1,000 reasons that you're too busy to sit past that, or to say, today's not a good day to meditate. A person who's curious, who's uncompromising, that keeps doing that over and over again, all of a sudden starts to biologically change. Because if the environment signals the gene, and it does, and the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion, a person who's living by the same emotion every single day is signaling the same genes in the exact same way. And genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and function of the body. And the expression of proteins is the expression of life. And that person now they're feeling certain feelings that are familiar to them, that are influencing the very same thoughts, and the very same thoughts make the very same chemicals for them to feel the exact same way. And it takes crisis, and it takes trauma, and it takes disease, and it takes diagnosis, and it takes betrayal, and it takes loss for people to finally make up their mind to change. We discovered that if you keep thinking the same way, if you keep making the same choices, if you keep doing the same things, if you keep recreating the same experiences, and you keep feeling the same emotions, your biology is going to stay the same because you're the same. There's nothing to that. But we discovered also, give people information, sound scientific information, and let science be the contemporary language of mysticism. Let science demystify the mystical and challenge the mind of an individual to combine quantum physics with neuroscience and neuroendocrinology and psychoneuroimmunology and the mind-body connection and epigenetics. I always say to our audiences, turn to someone next to you and say, I'm not afraid of the word epigenetics. You know, people get afraid of that word. Electromagnetism. We want to make it. All of those sciences point the finger at possibility. And if knowledge is power, then knowledge about yourself is self-empowerment. And it's not enough to just learn it. This is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. The application of that philosophical, theoretical information, we discovered that every time you learn something, you're making a lot of connections in your brain. 1 hour of focused concentration on one concept, one idea, doubles the number of connections in your brain if you're present with that information. There's physical evidence in your brain as a result of information in your environment. The brain is mapping information neurologically. If you don't repeat it, If you don't think about it, if you don't review it, those circuits prune apart within hours or days. So if learning is making synaptic connections, then remembering is maintaining and sustaining that information. And people have to think about it because it's so much easier to forget this information than to remember it. And they got to remind themselves and reproduce that same level of mind. So what we discovered is if you set up the conditions in the environment and you give people the proper instructions, if they can get their behaviors to match their intentions, they can get their actions equal to their thoughts, if they get their mind and body working together, they should have a new experience. And the experience then causes jungles of neurons to be organized into more complex networks. That's what experience does. And we understood that the more the person can understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, the how gets easier, and they'll assign meaning to the act. And when they assign meaning to the act, they switch on the prefrontal cortex, the crowning achievement of the human being. And now the frontal lobe is all about business. It wants an outcome. And when that occurs and the person actually has the new experience, the end product of the experience is called a feeling or an emotion. The moment you feel unlimited, the moment you feel free, the moment you feel abundant, you are teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind is intellectually understood. So knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body, and we're embodying the truth of the information. The information is no longer in the brain. The information is actually in the body now. And that information from that experience actually selects and instructs new genes. And the person's changing their genetic destiny. If you've done it once, it must mean you should be able to do it again. And doing it over and over again, neurochemically, neurologically and chemically, begins to condition the mind and body to begin to work as one. And when you've done it so many times that you no longer have to think about it, it's automatic, it's second nature, you've mastered that knowledge, you've become that knowledge. You're in a new state of being. It's innate in you. It's who you are. So to answer your question, we got to go from philosopher to initiate to master, from knowledge to experience to wisdom, from mind to body to soul, from thinking to doing to being, to learning it with your head, applying it with your hands, knowing it by heart, to believe, to behave, to become. And I can sit up here with you and I can tell you that in 7 days, if people go all in and they immerse themselves in the content, when they emerge at the end of 7 days, their biology has changed so much that it looks like they're living in a whole different life, a whole different environment. And they're making pharmacies of chemicals that work better than any drug, that we've actually mapped them, we've discovered them. It doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how young you are, doesn't matter how sick you are, doesn't matter how healthy you are, how rich, how poor, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. And when you get collective groups of people together doing it all at once, we discovered that people change people. And the only way we're going to change this world is we got to change us. People have to change. And when enough people change, I think that's the moment that who we are as a species of human beings begins to awaken. You know, the part of us that's kind and caring and loving and present and honorable and noble and empowered and giving and caring and healing. That's who human beings are when they're not living in stress and living in survival. Get a group of people doing that collectively, and I can tell you all kinds of crazy things not only go on in a person's biology, but in the energy of the room. And I want people to know that they're greater than they think, that they're more powerful than they know, that they're more unlimited than they could ever dream. And all I want to do is give people my greatest understanding of the truth, and then numerous opportunities to experience it. And sooner or later, they'll run into something really big. And they start believing in their future more than they've been believing in their past. And the side effect of that, then there's outcomes, miracles, that has changed my belief about possibility in the last 2 years. I'm not the same person because the people that are doing it look just like you. And they come from all over the world. And yeah, a lot of them had to go up against their own health conditions. And they stood on the stage at one point with stage 4 cancer, no evidence of stage 4 cancer. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, numerous times. That's the 4-minute mile. That's somebody breaking through a certain level of consciousness or unconsciousness. And let me tell you, no drug, no radiation, no surgery, no diet was changing their condition. And they realized that nothing changes in our life until we change. And when you change, your life should change. So I want to give people the tools to actually experiment with it to see if it's the truth.
Thank you guys for coming out tonight. I hope you enjoyed. I gotta go. That's all the time we had for today.
Oh
dear. So good. So let's keep diving deeper here. I'm excited to go into the more esoteric, crazy stuff. But to elaborate where we're at right now, you're speaking to how who we are is largely a habitual construct. By midlife, you said that about 95% of us is on autopilot. It's continually doing the same habits and motions throughout our life. And with that in mind, it's almost like we're asleep. You could just say we're asleep. And so the process of waking up, I want to dive into now of how we can tangibly move through and go through very much like a drug withdrawal, because
rehab.
It's rehab because we have the biggest chemical factory within us, right? And so we have this inner hormone monster like continually pulling us back to our old conditioned self. And so in real time, how do you allow and how do you support and recommend people change from their habitual constructs of their memory?
All right, so let's just say then that in the midlife, your personality becomes pretty hardwired. If you keep thinking the same thoughts, if you keep making the same choices, you keep doing the same things, you keep creating the same experiences, you keep feeling the same emotions, I don't know, let's be conservative. You do that for 10 years. You would have to agree with me then that it would become more automatic, it would become more unconscious. So your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. That is it. And your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So keep thinking the same way, keep acting the same way, keep feeling the same way. Your personality is the same, and your personal reality will be the same as well. So if you wanted to change your life, if you wanted to change your personal reality, you would have to change your personality. And then you'd have to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and decide if you really want to believe that any longer. And when does the story end? It's that moment that you become so conscious of that thought, you're so tired of it, you're so aware of it that you would never let it slip by your awareness ever again. You catch yourself complaining and blaming and making excuses and feeling sorry for yourself, and that's been your unconscious program. Then the moment you become conscious of those unconscious behaviors, you're out of the program. You're only in the program when you're unconscious, and so it takes an enormous amount of energy and awareness to separate from those programs. And then there's those emotions that we feel every single day that are so familiar to us that we don't even know what they are. We just feel guilty. We don't even know it's guilt. It's just how we feel. And the stronger the emotions that we have to experiences in our life, the more altered we are inside of us. When the chemistry changes inside of us, the brain narrows the focus on the cause and takes a snapshot or a series of snapshots, and that's called a long-term memory. And so then it makes total sense then that a person, by every time they relive that event in their life, they're making the same chemistry in their brain and their body, and their body's literally believing it's living that experience over and over again. And now the body's so in the past that it's the mind of the past. So then the act of becoming so conscious that you don't go unconscious is a changing of consciousness. How many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That is the moment of change. And I looked up the word meditation. I looked it up. I wanted to know what that symbol meant, and it means to become familiar with, to become so conscious of your unconscious self, to know thyself so well that you don't default back to that old personality that's a set of hardwired thoughts and attitudes and beliefs, automatic habits and behaviors and emotional responses that are equally as automatic. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choices you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, I got news for you. Get ready, it's gonna feel uncomfortable. It's gonna feel unfamiliar. There's gonna be some uncertainty. There's gonna be some unpredictability. You're not complaining any longer. Your body's gonna go, well, what have you been doing for the last 30 years? You're just gonna stop today? We've manufactured all these chemicals so easily, and the body's gonna start craving those emotions. And it's going to signal the brain to do what? Think the same thought. Why? So it could make the same choice, so it can do the same thing, so it could create the same experience, so it could feel the same emotion. And the person says, this feels right to me. No. It feels familiar to you. So the 95% of the personality that is on automatic pilot, to know thyself, we discovered that you don't walk around pretending to forgive. That's not what it's about. Is you sit in the fire in the meditation and you keep working and selectively deciding what thought you do want to believe. And when it's the hardest, matters the most. If you were really, truly ambitious about your life, you would say before you got up in the morning, I'm going to remind myself of who I no longer want to be, how I'm not going to think, how I'm not going to act, how I'm not going to feel. I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but let me just, when I step in that river of change, that biological, that neurological, that chemical, that hormonal genetic death of the self, let me help myself here. What thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? And with attention and with intention. If a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over in your brain, you can begin to install neurological hardware in your brain. Keep doing it, and the hardware becomes a software program, and the side effect of that is that's a new voice in your head. No magic there. If you said, how am I going to be with my ex? How am I going to be with my coworker? How am I going to be with my kids? What would greatness look like today? What would love do today? And if you closed your eyes and you rehearsed a scene, the act of mental rehearsal, just imagining something, the brain when it's present doesn't know the difference between what the person is imagining and the real life experience. And the brain is changing to look like the event has occurred. Keep installing that hardware and all of a sudden it'll become a software program and you might actually start acting like a happy person. No magic there either. You primed the brain for that behavior. You installed it. This is the hard part for most people. Can you teach your body emotionally what the future will feel like before it happens? That means you're not waiting for your wealth to feel abundant. You're not waiting for your success to feel empowered. You're not waiting for your new relationship to feel love. You're not waiting for the mystical experience to feel awe. You're not waiting for your healing to feel gratitude. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect. Wait for something outside there to change, to take away this lack or separation or emptiness that I feel inside me. But if you begin to condition your body into the emotion of that future, and you could become familiar with that emotion because you could bring it up every day, and you could keep becoming more familiar with the way you're thinking, the way you're acting, and the way you're feeling. If you actually feel the emotions of your future before they happen, you'll never look for it. Why would you look for that future if it felt like it already happened? Get ready. I'm telling you, get ready because weird things are going to happen in your life. The side effect of that is the synchronicity, the serendipity, the coincidence, the opportunity, the unusual event that causes you to do the and I'm not talking about a parking space either. I'm talking about a real life event where your world is rocked And somehow you come to the awareness, the consciousness, the understanding that somehow you're creating this. And we move from being the victims of our lives to being the creator of our lives. And I want people to experience that, to prove to themselves how powerful they really are. And people have done all kinds of things as a result of it.
Mic drop after mic drop. So good. So again, the awareness is the first step, right? To be aware of what's actually happening within our reality. But then the key I want to highlight and emphasize that you spoke to is that you need to emotionally embrace the new future you want to step into. And that's the key to actually making the shift.
To causing the effect. In the quantum, well, let's get, if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
Well,
In the quantum, you have to feel it to experience it. In three-dimensional reality, you wait for the experience, and the experience produces the feeling, and it takes away the lack or the emptiness of having it. And that's fine. That's how we navigate in three-dimensional reality. But when we truly create beyond the realm of space and time, if we create from the field instead of from matter, it's a different game. It's a whole different game. That's a whole nother rabbit hole we can step down if you want. But let's just finish the thought of the personality and the personal reality here before we step into that. If you think differently, if you're acting differently, and if you're feeling differently, if you try that out as an experiment, and you said, look, I took time out of my life to actually do this, to change myself, I would like to know if it works. I'd love to get some feedback in my life. If you practice that on a regular basis, to become so familiar with yourself, so conscious of your unconscious self that you don't default, and if you can remind yourself who you do want to be in your life, and this is really about overcoming to become, if you think about it, who gets to be the beneficiary of your efforts? I mean, imagine if you're less angry and you're more happy, what would you think your friends would think? You're on a different medication. That's what they would think. They would think something's funny about you. You're not showing up as the memory that they have of you. So we teach that principle because when people do think differently, when they do make different choices, when they do different things, when they create different experiences and they feel different emotions, their biology really changes. Not a little bit, like a lot. Their brains change, their hearts change, their gene expression changes, thousands of metabolites in their blood change, their immune system gets stronger. All kinds of amazing things happen when people step into that river of change. I believe that if you're not being defined every day by a vision of the future, you'll be left with the memories of the past and you'll be predictable in your life. And to be defined by a vision of the future is actually selecting a new possibility that you would like to experience. And that possibility already exists in the quantum field. And in order for you to get creative, if you said, what would it be like to be happy? What would it be like to be healthy? What would it be like to be abundant? Whatever that is. The moment you ask those kind of open-ended frontal lobe questions, that forebrain switches on, and it's the workshop. It's the builder, it's the designer, it's the creator, it's the inventor. And really, it only has a certain amount of resources. It's got the circuits in the brain of things you've learned intellectually, philosophically, theoretically, and then it has the networks of connections that have to do with experiences. And it looks out over the brain and says, let's see what he's got. I'll call up a little of this, a little of that, and it starts calling up different networks of neurons to answer the question what wealth or health or freedom would look like. And the moment those neurons fire in tandem, the person gets a picture in their mind, an image. And that's called intention. They're selecting a new possibility in the quantum field. For the passionate person who's truly lost in the creative process, they actually start to feel the emotion of that experience before it happens. And you've all done it. You make up your mind about something and your body feels it. No one's going to talk you out of it. Because once you feel it, you know that it's possible. And so then the only way you can believe in that future is to feel the feeling of that future before it happens. Because the moment you default and you start feeling other feelings, I promise you, you're going to believe in your past and you're going to come up with a really good story. And 50% of that story, according to neuroscience, isn't even true. People make up these miserable lives that they never even had just to feel some emotion. So then, the person who's truly on the journey, who's going to break the addiction to those emotions, and they understand when they no longer feel those feelings, they're no longer signaling the same genes in the same way. They intellectually understand that. Their body begins to change, and all of a sudden they say, my goodness, the pain that I had from my disease is better. I'm sleeping better through the night. I have more energy. They start noticing changes. That's the moment. The moment they notice what they're doing inside of them, that's starting to produce an effect outside of them, they're going to correlate what they're doing and they're going to keep doing it. And we've seen people heal from all kinds of health conditions. And I've asked them, where's the disease? Where'd it go? And they say, it belongs to the old person. I'm just not that person any longer. I'm somebody else. And like magic, their biology responds in wonderful and healthy ways. Now, people need to hear that. You need to hear that because that is the truth. That is the truth that there's a possibility for you to change you in some way that supports the vision of your future. But if you don't wake up every morning and be defined by it, it's easier to forget that future than to remember it. People who are truly on the journey and they're changing their personality, they're doing their meditations not to heal. They're doing their meditations to change. And they understand that when they change, the side effect of that is a change in their biology. They're not waiting for their healing to feel grateful. They understand that the gratitude is actually creating the healing. They're not waiting for their success to feel empowered. They're feeling empowered and they're walking towards their success. They're in love with life and they're in love with themselves and they create that in their lives. They're mystified by the mystery of life and they're having mystical experiences. And it's not like something that they have to try to do. It's the side effect of who they've become. And it's not the wealth. It's not the health. It's not the new relationship, it's who we become. And it's the overcoming process that is the becoming process. And making time for yourself out of your busy lives to spend a little bit of time defining who you want to be when you open your eyes is a service to the world in so many wonderful ways, because when everybody else is knee-jerking and you're present and compassionate, when everybody else is frustrated and angry, you're loving and kind. If you keep doing what feels unnatural, sooner or later you start becoming supernatural. And that's really what this is all about. It's to give people permission in their lives to be empowered by themselves. And if you don't wake up every morning and you don't do it, it means you don't believe it. And taking a little time to get yourself right, you've done this already. Everybody in this room has done something great. And all they did was they decided on what that future was they wanted to live by, and they made a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that choice carried a level of energy that caused their body to respond to their mind. That the choice that they made in that moment to change, to live in that future, was a moment in time they would never forget. They could tell you where they were, the time of day it was, and the stronger the emotion they feel, the more they remember the choice. And they're remembering their future, long-term memory. That's the moment their healing began. That's the moment the body got a taste of the future. And they were doing it without a cell phone. They were doing it without a drug. They were doing it without a Netflix show. They were doing it on their own. People start doing that over and over again. Watch out. Start getting happy without you.
I look at the amount of reinforcement from the people that are familiar with the old selves as we start to change, that then they try to pull us back into who they have known us to be. At a deep fundamental level, how does our identification with the big three keep us stuck in that survival versus greater consciousness?
Wow. I love the question. Thank you. Every person, every object, everything, every place that you've ever been is mapped neurologically in your brain. Your brain is a reflection of the environment. It's an artifact of everything you've experienced in your life. If we're not defined by a vision of the future then, and we're left with the old circuitry of the past, it makes sense that the moment you open your eyes and your senses plug you into three-dimensional reality, the moment you see the same person, you see that person based on the memory you have of them. And that memory you have of them is associated with an emotion. And you see another person, and you go to another place, you do another thing. And now it's no longer that your personality is creating your personal reality. It's your personal reality is actually creating your personality. Your environment is actually controlling, on some level, how you're thinking and how you're feeling by your senses giving you information based on the past. Come on, are you with me? Did you say no? Did I hear a no there? Every person, every object, everything, every place in your life is mapped neurologically in your brain. You meet somebody for the first time, you say, who are you? Oh, I'm this person, and I know these people. And I own these things, and I lived in these places at these different times. I lived in that place during that time, and I know those people. Oh, well, hey, you know how that goes. So you have a neurological network for your boss, you have a neurological network for your partner, you have a neurological network for your cell phone, for your car, for everything that's known in your life. Everything that you know about in your life is mapped neurologically in your brain. So when people wake up in the morning and their senses plug them into three-dimensional reality, their environment is controlling the majority of the way they're thinking and feeling. In fact, they need the environment to feel something. And now we're at a point where there's a lot of things that are causing us to think a certain way. And so then the person has a good day. What do they say? I feel pretty good today. Had a good day. But when something goes wrong, when a person or circumstances change their state and now they feel bad, and you say to them, why do you feel this way? If they say to you, I feel this way because of that person or that circumstance or that condition, what they're really saying is that person, that problem, that circumstance is actually controlling my thoughts and controlling my feelings. And anything that's controlling our feelings or our thoughts or controlling us, we're victim to. Yes or no? Now, the stronger the emotion you have towards that person or the problem, the more you pay attention to it or to that person. And where you place your attention is where you place your... And you're giving your power away to that person. They're taking up your vital energy to change. And when a person is sitting in the fire, and their body's raging and they're trying to blame everybody, and that person is lowering the volume to that emotion, and they keep lowering the volume to that emotion, and the hardest part of every war is the last battle, and they lower the volume to that emotion. Finally, the body realizes it's no longer the mind, that the person is the mind, and there's that liberation of energy. The moment they overcome that emotion, they'll take their attention off that person or problem, and now they're calling energy back to them. And they're building their own electromagnetic field. There's energy to heal now. There's energy to create. There's energy for the mystical. And the side effect of that, getting out of those survival states, those emotions of survival, is the heart begins to open. And we've discovered the moment that heart starts feeling that energy, it is the creative center, and like taking a big blanket and going like this, it informs the brain right away. It's safe to create. It's safe to have a vision. When you get people really good at synchronizing their heart to their brain, they get super creative. In that state, we call relaxed and awake. Relaxed in the heart and awake in the brain is so much better than stressed out, unconscious, and living in a program. And it turns out you can teach people how to do that in 7 days.
Let's give some grunts after each moment. So the big three, right? If we're under the identification...
Oh, let me finish that.
Go for it.
So then to change then, it would make sense then that you'd have to be greater than your environment. Yes or no? Yes. Because you can't respond in the same way, because if you do, you default back to the old person. Yes or no? So the change is to hold the vision in spite of environmental conditions, in spite of that state, and not fall from grace. And if the body's been conditioned to be the mind emotionally and it's been habituated into a future, then it means the change is you have to overcome your body. When the body gets aroused, when it wants to get up and do something and you settle it down, that's the process of change right there. That's the overcoming process. That's what it takes to arrive at your future. So if the body has drives and it's emotional and it's habituated and you keep settling it down, I promise you, you're taming your pet. You stay right there. I'm going to feed you. I know you think you're going to die. I know you're super busy. I know you get migraines. I know you have food allergies. I know it's better for you to lay down. I know it's your mother's fault. Oh, no, it's your ex's fault. I know all that. You hang in there. Past all of those points, the body is trying to unseat you. It's doing what it can, and by causing it to fall back into the present moment, into the unknown, is how we overcome time. Because if you're not in the predictable future and you're not in the familiar past, those are the knowns. The present moment is the unknown, and that's where possibility exists. Teaching people how to get there and stay there is a habit. You can get better at it the more you do it.
Then, right, if we're under the assumption that who I am is this name in this body, I'm going to move in this time-space reality to protect my identity that I've created for myself. As you start to go from a somebody to a nobody to an everybody, which you speak to, then you start to tap into what is the unified field, and its nature starts to become your nature.
Whoa. Okay. So it makes sense then. Let's see if we can arrive there. It makes sense then that if you are truly going to really put all of your attention on you, to be aware of nothing but you, you would have to control all those thoughts that are connected to your body, to the people in your life, to the things you own, to the places you need to be, the place you live, the place you sleep, your schedule, the past. But we discovered that if we ask people to close their eyes, and now they're getting less sensory information to their brain, and we ask them to begin to take all of their attention off their body and go from a somebody to a nobody, to take all of their attention off all the people in their life and to go from a someone to a no one. That means you lay down the character. No attention on the objects and things in your life. You go from something to nothing. To take all of your attention off all the places you have to go and go from somewhere to nowhere and from some time to no time. You no longer are the character that you think you are in this three-dimensional reality. Your consciousness. Now imagine this. So let's make it really simple. Your senses plug you into reality, yes or no?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
If I took away your sight, your hearing, your smell, your taste, feeling with your body, would you agree with me that you would have no experience of three-dimensional reality? Yes or no? Yes. But what would you be if you were still you? You would be aware. Yes or no? Yes. Aware of what? Nothing but you. And that is the perfect place where people begin to make really powerful changes. And we call that overcoming the self. Throw in the hormones of stress. And the stress hormones heighten our senses now and cause us to narrow our focus on the cause of the problem. And as the arousal of those chemicals cause the body and the brain to become alert, we focus primarily on the material world. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy and you're living in this state of survival, a state of stress, if T-Rex is chasing you, it would make sense you would be looking in your environment where to go. Yes or no? Yes. If you felt him breathing down the back of your neck, you would be thinking about your body, would you not? And if you were thinking about getting from here to the cave, you'd be thinking about how much time it's going to take you to get there. So stress hormones cause us to put all of our attention on our bodies, all of our attention on our environment, all of our attention on time. It's kind of funny because if to change means to be greater than your body, to be greater than your environment, and to be greater than time. When we're under stress and we're in survival, it's really hard to change. In fact, it's not a time to change. It's a time to run, fight, and hide. And people spend up to 70% of their waking day living aroused by those stress hormones. So aroused that they become addicted to the rush of those chemicals, and they use the problems and the people in their life to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion. And they're becoming addicted to the life they don't even like. And those chemicals are powerful chemicals that change the brain and body dramatically. We move out of homeostasis, we move out of balance. The body's mobilizing all of its resources for whatever danger it's perceiving in the outer world. The problem is that you have one or two of those experiences and then you start expecting them to happen. When you're under stress, you're always preparing yourself for the worst case scenario in your mind. Prepare yourself for the worst. Anything less happens, you have a better chance of surviving. So people then all of a sudden start imagining the worst things that could happen to them in their life, and they embrace the emotion that's associated with it. And it's the thought and the feeling, it's the image, the emotion, it's the stimulus and response, and they're conditioning their body to become the mind of anxiety. And you keep doing it over and over again, the body will have a panic attack without you. Try as you may to control it with your conscious mind, you programmed it subconsciously. And no planet that's 92 million miles away from here is causing you to be that way. I can tell you that. It's not cucumbers and it's not gluten either that's doing that to you. You're doing that to you. And so, in living in stress and living in survival, the stress response is created when we can't control something, when we can't predict something, when we have the perception that something's going to get worse. And all of a sudden, the arousal causes us to do what? Try to control, try to predict, try to make everything right. And so, in the aroused state, the brain is in very, very high frequency. And it's shifting its attention from one person to another object, to another thing, to another place. And every one of those different elements has a neurological network in the brain, and like a lightning storm in the brain starts firing out of order, starts firing really disintegrated, it's firing incoherently. And when waves are interfering incoherently, they lose energy. And we lose energy in the brain. And when we're under the gun of those chemicals, we narrow our focus, we over-focus, we obsess about something, and you have 10 really great things that happen in your life and one doesn't work, and you'll obsess about that one thing. In the state of readiness, in the state of survival, the brain is always trying to predict the next moment based on the past. There's no room for the unknown for a person in their life, and everything now, they have to see it, they have to smell it, they have to taste it, they have to feel it. Their senses are defining reality. And they're narrowing and narrowing their focus. And we just discovered that if we taught people to take their attention off of everything that's material, everything that's known in their life, and go from this kind of what we call a convergent focus or a narrow focus, to broaden their focus and open their awareness to nothing. Now, I don't know how to explain nothing to a materialist, but there's nothing there. And how big is emptiness or nothing? I don't know. But when people begin to broaden their focus and begin to sense space, the act of sensing, the act of feeling causes them to stop analyzing and thinking. And if they stop analyzing and stop thinking, they no longer activate those circuits in their brain that keep them in that state. And the brain starts to unify. It starts to synchronize. It starts to fire more coherently. It starts to organize in really healthy patterns. And what syncs in the brain actually links in the brain. And so when we have people open their awareness to space, and they pay more attention to it and less attention to them, they stay more aware of it and less aware of them, that they can lose their sense of identity, their sense of self to nothing. Their brain waves beautifully change in really, really wonderful ways. And the whole entire brain is now a symphony. And some people can get so good at this that they could actually let their body move into a light sleep. And it's resting in a light sleep while they're awake and conscious. And the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open to information. But now they're sitting there with their eyes closed. They're not getting any information from the environment. They're in a meditation. There's only one other place information comes from, and that's frequency. And all frequency carries information. And when their nervous system is oscillating in order, it begins to become entrained to that unified field, that quantum field, that invisible field of unifying energy that exists beyond your senses. There's no people there, there's no objects, there's no bodies there, there's no things. I looked it up. What existed before the Big Bang? Nothing. And that place where that emptiness is, it's rich in frequency. And now something amazing happens. When a person's dialed down the neocortex, the memory bank of the known self, what plugs them into three-dimensional reality, and their brain waves are in the very resonant state of theta, and they're in a hypnotic state, and the information is not coming through their senses from their environment, and they start tuning in, there's a connection that takes place. And all of a sudden, the nervous system starts interacting with energy and frequency, and the brain goes into these heightened states of gamma brainwave patterns, and the brain is aroused. And the arousal is not pain, and the arousal is not fear, and the arousal is not anger or aggression. The arousal is ecstasy. The arousal is connection. It is the most familiar, unfamiliar feeling we'll ever have in our life. And that moment when that occurs and that autonomic nervous system is in high gamma, hundreds of standard deviations outside of normal, 3 standard deviations outside of normal is 2% of the population. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of standard deviations in gamma, coherent gamma, perfect coherent gamma. And those waves, as they interfere, start building bigger waves. And the brain starts moving into standing waves of energy. And that person now is getting a biological upgrade. And energy is informing matter. And there's the eczema, now it's gone. There's the blindness, now it's gone. There's the deafness, now it's gone. There's the stage 4 cancer metastasized to the bones, it's gone. There's the Parkinson's, now it's gone. Somehow there's a biological upgrade that takes place in the body. And literally they're interacting with that invisible field of energy. And we've just started to discover the different signposts, the different places, the resting points that the heart and the brain have to go to reach that elegant moment where we have that experience. That's the quantum. Now, this is what I noticed about that. Imagine having that moment and realizing it's not coming from any person, any object, anything. It's not coming from anything outside of you. Imagine that feeling of what people call pure love. I don't know, there's no word for it. Connection, bliss, whatever that is, wholeness, oneness. Imagine when a person realizes that it's not coming from anyone outside of them. They stop looking for it everywhere else, and that's when the love affair begins. And it gets really hard to miss a date. We take the blood of those people who hit that point. There's information in their blood that causes cancer cells to reduce in metabolic function by 70%. We take that blood, there's information in that blood, we subject it to Alzheimer's genes, it downregulates the genes for Alzheimer's. I know this is politically incorrect. We take the plasma of those people and we put a really nasty virus. We put that in the presence of the plasma of the people that run into that frequency, and the virus cannot enter the cell. It cannot enter. We isolated the protein in the plasma of advanced meditators who have this moment that actually will inhibit the spike protein from entering the cell. Imagine that. Producing a pharmacy of chemicals in your body that work better than any drug. A drug study, by the way, is about 25% causality. 25% cause and effect, 1 out of 4. That's usually a study that lasts 6 months, 3 months. The data that we study when we look at the blood of advanced meditators, 85 to 75% effective. That's 3 out of 4. And they're signaling the same genes, and they're making the same proteins. And that information is not coming from the diet. It's not coming from the drug. And I keep asking the scientists, where is that information coming from? Where are those chemicals coming from? Where is that information coming from in the blood that wasn't there at the beginning of 7 days? Your nervous system is the greatest pharmacist there ever was. And I can say that with such confidence now because I've seen the data.
So many of us have in this room had experiences many times in just sober waking consciousness through meditation, through breath work, through the various different modalities that can allow us to go within. You can experience a reality that is way more true, way more rich than anything with your eyes open. And when you taste that, when you touch that, you know that's a possible reality. You know that that place feels like pure possibility. You no longer, it's not as worthwhile to go to Mars, but to go on an expedition to the inner cosmos to see how deep you can go within the wells of your own being. When we have our eyes open, we're examining what's available to us with the visible light that we see, less than 1% of possible frequencies. When we start to tap in that place within us that is more vast, we start to explore this constant sea of invisible forces that are within us, that were always around us. The Wi-Fi that's around us through all the different various frequencies we don't see, but they have an effect on us. So what then becomes possible when you start to explore those other 99% frequencies, and you're not just enamored, enchanted with the 1% physical phenomena that's arising and passing away in each moment?
Great question. The probability that we see the truth of reality is 0. That's the mathematics. That's the mathematics. That's what the mathematics say. I looked it up. That we're perceiving less than 1% of reality, where we're witnessing a very small bandwidth of an electromagnetic spectrum that is the rainbow. And those different shades are bouncing off physical objects and giving us the illusion of separation, like a virtual reality experience. You're the character in the virtual reality experience, and we live in this reality, and because we have our senses and we're local in space and time, we're conscious that I'm this person separate from everybody else, and I have an identity. And the way you create in three-dimensional reality, of course, is you got to do something. And you got to go do something, and it takes time to get that thing done. So you have a thought like, I want a new house. And then your brain actually will calculate how long it's going to take you to pay off that house. And so the person has the thought of this new vision of what they want in their life. And then they have to move their body back and forth all the time to ultimately get that experience. And it takes time and energy. And so everything in three-dimensional reality that we create takes a lot of time and takes a lot of energy. I think that the divine lives in every human being. I think that we all came from oneness. We came from source. We came from singularity. We came from pure love. What do you want to call it? Pure consciousness, where there's no separation. The consciousness of everybody, of everyone, of everything, of everywhere, of every time. All the information that exists, past, present, and future, in that source. You're hanging out in source forever, you start thinking eternity, is there anything else but oneness? What if there were many instead of one? And that's what created a separation from source. And we descended all the way down into density, fooled by our senses into the illusion of separation. And so now then, when we come down to this level, we have so much separation that we have the free will to create reality exactly the way we want. We took a piece of the divine with us. And we become so immersed in this less than 1% of reality, because where you place your attention is where you place your... So how much of your waking day do you put your attention on energy and frequency, and how much of your waking day do you put your attention on matter and memories from the past and predictions of the future? But just because that... well, first of all, let me ask a question. How many people in this room believe in the quantum field? I'm just curious. Okay, so the thing with the quantum field, though, is that if you're unaware of it, it doesn't exist for you. If all of your attention is on the material world, it doesn't exist for you. It's there, but you're disconnected from it. You have no connection to it because you're unaware of it. Just like your nose. Your nose has always been there. The moment I ask you to become aware of it, it exists for you. The quantum field is the same way. It's this invisible field of energy that is the full spectrum of all frequencies. And as you get closer and closer to greater frequencies, there's greater levels of experience that we get to have that has nothing to do with this three-dimensional reality. So in this three-dimensional reality is called space-time. And it's called space-time because it's got an infinite amount of space. I looked it up. Space is actually accelerating now. It's not just expanding. If we have infinite space, and we experience time by moving through space from one point of awareness to another point of awareness. Nothing wrong with that, but if you truly want to pass through the eye of the needle and enter that realm called the quantum field, you can't take your body. You can't take the character. You got to pass through the eye of the needle into that realm called time-space, that quantum, as pure consciousness. You got to leave the identity, the character behind, and the moment the person becomes nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, and they can linger in that vacuum, in that emptiness, without a name, without a face, without a profession, without a past, without a disease. They can just hang out as pure consciousness. It is very fertile ground. Brain and the heart get highly organized, and all of a sudden the rules change, because in the realm of time-space, the quantum, there's an infinite amount of time. Now, I know that's hard to imagine, but think about it like this. How many things could you get done if you had all the time in the world? I'm curious. How many? If you had all the time in the world, how many things could you get done? An infinite number of things equal to your imagination, yes? That's the quantum, but there's no objects, there's nothing physical. It's energy, it's frequency, it's vibration. It's information, it's consciousness, it's thought. And every thought in that realm has a frequency. So that when people begin to lay down the character in the virtual reality experience and become pure consciousness, they have to reframe their thinking once they enter that vacuum, and it takes practice to realize you're not your body. You think when you're there, there's you, and then there's not you. That's not even correct. There's no separation. And continuously surrendering some aspect of your limited self to join your greater self, to lose your sense of self to nothing, to dissolve into that infinite sea of blackness and become more of it and less of us. When we do that properly, we run into something really, really big, information. But the information, as I said, is not coming from this very small percentage of reality. It's coming from frequency that your nervous system's processing. There's a latent gland in the brain called the pineal gland that's a transducer. And a transducer is like a radio receiver. And every time we look at the scans of people who are connected, that part of the brain is on fire in their brain. That radio receiver is switched on, and it's transducing frequency into very profound imagery in their brain, just like a TV antenna. And there's an upgrade that takes place in melatonin. The mystical chemicals. Melatonin is a function of light and lightness and darkness. Serotonin and melatonin are a circadian pattern that takes place brain chemistry-wise where? Here, in three-dimensional reality. When there's light, we make serotonin. When there's darkness, there's melatonin. But now the person's connecting to information, and it's not coming from their environment. It's a frequency that's faster than the speed of light. It's quantum. Things are connected there. And when that person experiences that frequency, that connection, the pineal gland begins to manufacture chemicals that are derivatives of melatonin. Melatonin can't be melatonin any longer. It's interacting with a frequency that's different than light. And now melatonin makes really powerful antioxidants, anti-cancer, anti-aging, anti-heart disease, anti-stroke, anti-neurodegenerative, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory. Melatonin already causes you to relax. Now you are going to chill way out. It's going to turn into a benzodiazepine. You're going to make Valium, natural Valium in your brain. And Valium does what? Shuts the lights out in the amygdala. What's that? The survival center. No fear, no anxiety, no pain, no aggression, no anger, no frustration. Take that molecule and tweak it again. Melatonin already helps you to sleep. Ooh, now you're going to hibernate. Oh, first center, sexuality. Second center, appetite. Third center, preoccupation with the environment. The body goes into stasis. The body metabolically changes. We're discovering this. Take that molecule, tweak it again. You create the same chemical found in electric eels. And what do electric eels do? They amplify energy in their nervous system, and these high amounts of energy in the nervous system are very highly correlated with what we think those chemicals are. Take the molecule, tweak it again. Melatonin already causes you to dream, but this isn't a dream. All of a sudden, you make the most powerful hallucinogenic known to man, and all these 5 derivatives fit into the same receptor sites as serotonin and melatonin, but the brain is cranking with different information, and the person's having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. They are having, what is happening in that moment is more real than the trauma that they had 30 years ago. An experience enriches the brain. And the end product of an experience is an emotion, but this time the emotion isn't chemical. It's electric. It's an awakening. It's an arousal. It's a brainstorm. It's a moment of contact. It's a union. And that arousal causes the person to wake up in that dream, wake up in that reality, and there are an infinite number of those realities. No different than looking in a dressing room through 2 mirrors and you see an infinite number. There's infinite number of realities, and it's so important for us to realize that we're not linear beings living a linear life. We're dimensional beings living a dimensional life, and it just takes practice to activate that little gland in the back of your brain, and we work really hard on demystifying it. It has little crystals in it that when compressed, they begin to create a polarity in the crystals that create an electromagnetic field. There's the same passion that people have to be successful, to be an artist, to be an athlete, to be a musician, to be a business person, the same passion that they have in their life to achieve what they want. I want them to do that for themselves. Turn it in and have that be something that they really want to experience. And we've just been so lucky to capture brains in that moment. And people, I can't make the stories up. It's just impossible. The person is having a profound change, and when they come back to their senses, it becomes them and they become it in some bizarre way, and their spectrum of reality begins to broaden. They start to see what always existed, but they just didn't have the circuitry to perceive it until they had the upgrade, not from inside the virtual reality headset. They took the headset off. They got the upgrade from the information from the field. Anyway, that's the short story.
So you've said that the mind or the brain may think, but when you turn the heart into an instrument of perception, it knows. And I looked that up.
Did I say that?
The heart's electromagnetic field is 5,000 times greater of that than the brain. And so we can then use the mind and our brain to pinpoint the electrical charge we want, right? And then the heart can be the amplifier, the magnetic pull towards that for that reality. So I would love for you to speak into how when we find coherence, when we find alignment between brain and heart, then we can steward whatever reality we want to us in record time.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do is we when you're agitated at someone on a Zoom call, and you're doing and you're thinking about 5 ways to throttle them, I'm joking, but you get the idea. You're aroused by something that knocks you out of balance. And you're sitting there, your heart's beating against the closed system. It's pumping blood, but you're not running, you're not fighting, you're not hiding. And it starts creating problems. The heart starts beating out of order, out of rhythm. And so we discovered when we started teaching people how to place their attention on their heart. Where you place your attention is where you place and out of all the things that you feel with, you know what I'm talking about with your body, we ask people to feel with nothing but their heart. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And we started hooking up the heart, the ECG monitors with the brain. And every time the heart would flux into coherence, you would see this wave of alpha, just this beautiful coherent wave of alpha. The heart was telling the brain, create. And alpha is the creative state. And when we're in alpha, we see in pictures, we see in images, we're imagining. When we're in beta, we're thinking, we're analyzing. It's the voice in your head. So we saw that when the person dropped into their heart really well, there was this kind of wave of information that went to the brain and caused the brain to become very coherent. And it was always after the heart was in that state. And so we started realizing that the heart was the creative center. It's when we move out of these first three centers and we move into our heart. When we move into that center, the heart starts telling the brain, starts informing the brain. So we started building instruments with our brain scientists and our scientific team, where we could actually see how this kind of phenomena worked. And so when a person starts putting their attention in their heart, we start seeing this very low frequency in the heart that's only indigenous to the heart, start to fill up like a gas tank. The person's just putting their attention on their heart, and they're giving their heart the energy it needs to beat. That's what that frequency is about. So you're feeding it an energy. So we see it kind of go up like a gas tank, and then we see the parasympathetic nervous system come up with it. And what does that mean? The person's relaxing, right? So now they're relaxing, but then all of a sudden, we see the parasympathetic nervous system about to drop down, and here comes the sympathetic nervous system, and now the person's having a little arousal. And we started discovering that when this occurs, when a person is relaxed in their heart, there's energy that moves to the brain. The person starts seeing possibilities that they never saw before. And so getting really good at relaxing in your heart and awakening your brain causes this kind of synchronization that takes place between the two. They're dancing together in this really beautiful way. And when they're in the same or similar frequency, if you're sharing the same frequency, you're sharing the same information. Now, the brain may think, but the heart knows. And I'm telling you, it is a straight shooter. It does not beat around the bush at all. And now the heart starts informing the brain, giving it the information that the person needs for themselves in their lives. And we can do this. We take people, we can train them to do this, and they can do it in 15 minutes. And when they start getting really good at relaxing more in their heart and more energy begins to move into their brain, we start seeing this very crazy thing happen in the brain where delta waves are now carrying theta waves, and theta waves are carrying alpha waves, and alpha waves are carrying beta waves, and beta waves are carrying high beta waves, and high beta waves are carrying gamma waves, and the whole entire brain is functioning in resonance. There are patterns within patterns within patterns within patterns. And that person is having a very profound transcendental moment. So we work with getting really relaxed in our hearts and awake in our brain. We do it so much. I want people to get so good at doing it with their eyes closed, they can do it with their eyes open. Because relaxed in the heart and awake in the brain is so much better than stressed out, unconscious, and living in a program. And so we practice that because when we have brain and heart coherence, I say that when the brain is coherent and it's functioning in those beautiful waves, it can send out a very clear signal. The more coherent the waves, the more coherent the information. And the brain is the electrical charge in the quantum field, and the heart has a magnetic field that's measurable, up to 3 meters wide, even more. And when the heart is beating in rhythm and it's beating like in cadence, like a drum, like a great drum, or pebble after pebble after pebble in the water, it begins to create a magnetic field. And that magnetic field is the very thing that we use when we create from the field instead of from matter. Instead of going to get what we want, to have in our life if we could activate the center. And if you're going to believe in that future that you're imagining with all of your heart, it's got to be open, it's got to be activated. And when we begin to create from the field instead of from matter, and we start to draw the experience to us with our heart, you no longer have to go anywhere to get it. Now it starts showing up in ways that you least expect, that surprise you, that leave no doubt that somehow you're connected to that future. And I want people to be able to stay in the energy of that feeling, because so many people who begin this work that have been diagnosed with health conditions, they've noticed a change in a lot of their symptoms, but their blood values and their scans never change. And they come to the realization, almost all of them, and I talk to them, I interview a lot of them, they realize that they may have a great meditation, like 1 hour, 45 minutes, I nailed it. And then they spend their other 16 hours of their day angry, frustrated, complaining, and they figure it out. They're like, oh my God, 1 hour of signaling genes in the right way, and then 16 hours I'm signaling genes in the wrong way. I gotta get really good at doing this and changing my responses, and I gotta stay relaxed in my heart and awaken my brain. And if they don't default and they stay in that state, it makes sense then that their recovery is greater. So we use it as a way for people to get really good at staying present. And when you're relaxed in your heart, when you're awake in your brain, there's a beautiful dance that goes on between the two. And it's just a skill. The more you practice it, the better you get at it.
Mm-hmm. As we continue to dive deeper in this rabbit hole, so people that start to tap in through meditation, that have these different experiences that are very, very mystical, they have experiences that when they viscerally feel that their vibration is raising, right? Maybe you're activating your pineal gland, these calcite crystals start vibrating. Whatever is also vibrating at that same pitch becomes revealed, it becomes available to you. And people see light beings, people see colors, geometric patterns, shapes, new colors they've never seen before.
That's true.
And so what say you?
You know, I mean, for me, I mean, I'm very passionate about the mystical. I'm very passionate about the unknown. That's just something. I'm weird that way. I've always believed that there's more to reality than this dream. It's kind of an instinct in our minds, I think. It's an intuition, a knowingness in our heart for those of us on the path that never really seems to go away. I think that's the feeling that brings people to commune and really ask greater questions. When people have transcendental experiences, there are moments of information that takes place, but whatever that experience is for that person is changing them on a very, very visceral level. We looked at the data in studying people who have these transcendental moments, and we work with a university in Oklahoma to study language, to see what people say, like when they have these moments. And the majority of the time, the word they use the most is they feel it. And the feeling comes in two ways. The first way is very somatic. Like my body was like someone took a dimmer switch and just turned me up, or someone plugged me into a light socket. Like I never felt anything like that before in my body. There's a physical somatic thing that they experience. And then there's the emotional component. And the emotional component is the residue from the experience. And so many times we get people on the stage that were in wheelchairs when they came to our events. And surgeons, you know, cancer researchers, doctors, engineers, all kinds of people. They're having these profound moments, and they're talking about is how amazing it feels. And I say, well, you just tell them, oh yeah, I was blind and now I can see. Well, thank you. Oh yeah, I came in a wheelchair. I forgot to tell you, I came in a wheelchair, now I'm walking. It's the emotion that is changing them. That is the end product of that experience, and that's when they know that they're changing. So then when a person has the experience of healing themselves, as an example, and there's been plenty of people, the 4-minute mile has been broken numerous times now. And people do the best with what they think is available. And if you're not aware of it, you'll make the same choice. They have their own personal healing, and of course, They feel so in love with life. They're not victimized by their condition any longer. They're wondering, what am I going to do with all this love? Is it possible to heal another person? And we have amazing data now to say that is absolutely possible. We have amazing data to say that you don't even have to be in the same place and do it, and you can produce an effect. So the next question the person has is, if I heal myself, maybe I can heal another person. That would be a new experience in your evolution. And then if I heal another person, and I've witnessed it, and we've got great data on this, is it possible then if I'm in the quantum, then I don't really need to be with the person? Could I hit a target? Just give me a picture. In the quantum, everything's connected. Let me evolve my model. And so every experience that I've had in the mystical, without a doubt, when I come back, the first thing I say is, Joe Dispenza, you got this all wrong, man. You are way off. That's not how reality is. And so then I get an upgrade to my interface with reality. Somehow I'm seeing things differently. Some veil, some illusion, some conditioning, some hypnosis. Something is removed and I'm seeing the hidden meaning more behind things. I'm seeing the divine more in people, seeing the divine in everything, actually. That's what it makes me then think about what the next experience could be. And every new experience that you have causes you to think of infinite number of experiences you would have never thought of without experience. And that's God in its never-ending process of self-discovery, answering the question, is there more than oneness? And so then our job then is to evolve. And so for me, I just spent a long period of my life very interested in the mystical. There wasn't anything that was really bringing me a whole lot, and I wanted to see if it really existed. And I put a lot of time and a lot of energy into it. And then I learned a lot about me in the process because it didn't happen as fast as I wanted it to. So I changed a lot. And it was me changing, I think, all along the way that made it so wonderful, because when I finally really didn't even care if I had a mystical experience because I felt so great about myself, that's when it just started happening. It wasn't like I wasn't trying to do anything. And so then in that 99.99999% reality that is wave function, that's information that we're not perceiving with our senses, there are infinite dimensions, infinite possibilities. There's a future you, there's a past you. And you can move through time in that dimension and experience space or dimensions. And you don't have to go anywhere because you're everywhere all at once. I don't know how else to say that. You just change the thought, you change the frequency, you become aware of another possibility. And your awareness brings it to life. So in the work that we do, people who are very passionate about having a mystical experience, I know the brain chemistry pretty well. It means you're going to have to get up at 4 a.m. You don't want to come? I don't care. But at 4 a.m, you got a lot of melatonin. And if you have a lot of melatonin, you got a lot of raw materials. If that pineal gland has crystals, let's figure out a way to activate those crystals. Let's figure out how to do it. And so the side effect of many of these experiences is this incredible feeling where you think there just can't be any more love than what you just experienced until the next one. And so for me, every experience that I have in mystical causes me to think about other things that are possible. And I really believe you can train people in so many ways to begin to realize that there are many, many aspects of themselves aside from this one. And the brain is just a great processor that can take the physics of that field of information and connect it to the biology of the brain and of the body. And so we have this incredible data that we've been studying. We've got over 18,000 brain scans. It's insane to say that the majority of people that practice, their brain improves for the better. I can tell you that based on our fMRI studies, that when you don't expect anything to happen, you're going to have an unexpected moment. I want to tell you, when that unexpected moment happens, it looks like you're on psilocybin. It does. I'm telling you that meditation causes brain that have become modulated and compartmentalized become more holistic. And now networks of neurons are now firing at greater levels. I can tell you that people in this community can get, most people, when their brain is working, it's like 3%, 5%, 6%, different areas are lighting up. These people are connecting, and there's this cross-frequency coupling going on in the brain, and micro-conscious circuits are forming macro-conscious connections. And the person's now at a greater level of consciousness, 26% of their brain. And that person is connected in that moment. There's some type of biological change. I can tell you that you could make your heart work better in 7 days. I can tell you that at the end of 7 days, if you go all in on your own personal change and transformation, that you'll produce chemicals in your body to look like you're in a completely different life. You can't call this pseudoscience any longer. I love when the scientists run the studies 5 times in a row. I love that. I love that they think of ways to do it differently because they really think they're going to get a different result. And they keep getting the same result, and they're changing their belief right in that moment. They're changing it right in that moment. And they do the work. These are skeptics. They do the work because I asked them, why are you doing the work? And they said, it's medicine. I did the scan. I know exactly what that does. And the more you assign meaning to the task, the greater outcome you get. And so we've measured gene expression. I can tell you that you can change your gene expression no problem in 7 days. And the question that every scientist has when we show them our data is the same question. Are you telling me these changes took place, a volcano, an explosion of factors in 7 days? Are you telling me 7 days? 7 days. In 7 days, people could make their body, their biology, everything begin to change. And when you get collective people coming together with brain and heart coherence, watch out. Watch out, because if they direct that attention and that energy towards another human being, they will heal that person. I've seen it. I just came back from Nashville. This 15-year-old kid, 15 years old, lost his hearing in one ear. They put him in the cage. He forgot that he wasn't even in there for that. Turned his head. He said, I never cried so hard that I ever remembered. 15 years old. He comes out of the coherence healing. He's totally hearing again. Some guy lost his voice years ago, couldn't speak. Standing on a stage and speaking in front of people. He's not talking about that he could speak. He's talking about the amount of love that he felt from those collective networks of observers. And it is collective networks of observers that determine reality. And when we put random event generators in the room, sophisticated coin tosses, 1,000 times, 1,000 hertz a second. It's going 1 or 0, heads or tails. No one's in the room, it's a flat line. The moment we do these coherence healings, that line just drops, just goes right out of normal. Random events are becoming less random and more intentional. And all of a sudden, people are having profound changes. I want people to heal people. You know why? Because we have people that do these healings every day of their life. They do them and they're really good at it. We've measured them. I asked them, why do you do it every day? They don't do it to say I'm a healer, by the way. They do it because they love to listen to the mother of the child with autism who comes on at the end of 3 coherence healings and says, my son hasn't slept through the night since he was born. No medication, no drug, no therapy. He's changed the fact that he's incontinent. He bangs his head. He's violent. And ever since those 3 coherence healings, he's sleeping through the night. He's using the toilet. He's hugging me again. They do that. They do that healing to experience what that mother is experiencing. That's causing them to be more whole. And when that happens, something innate in us switches on as human beings. It's really beautiful. Pro-social networks switch on, and somehow we move closer together. We commune, we connect, and we're more appreciative of the moment. And the feeling that mother is feeling, the gratitude that she's feeling, there's no greater way to feel gratitude than when you receive it. And the people who are doing the healing, that are receiving the gratitude from that mother, they're healing. And now all the things they thought they want, they no longer want. So how long does it go? Every new experience then creates another new opportunity for us to dream even a greater experience for ourselves. And I think that's consciousness in its never-ending process of self-discovery. And the cool part about it is, you can't tell me you're too sick to do this work any longer. You can't tell me that. I've seen people with really serious health conditions. They showed up every day. They never missed a day. And there were days they had a lot of fear because the doctor told them they could die. And they could have not done their meditation, but guess what? They showed up anyway, and they overcame their fear a little bit more that day. There were days that they had so much self-doubt because their condition was getting worse. If they didn't show up for themselves, they wouldn't believe in possibility. They showed up, and they overcame their doubt, self-doubt a little bit more. There were days where they didn't feel good, where they felt sick, felt nauseous, they had no energy. They could have said, don't feel like it. And they did their meditation anyway. There were days where they could have said, I'm too busy, I got kids, I got a job, I don't have enough time. Guess what? They showed up anyway, and it's the overcoming process that is the becoming process. When they have that moment where they're finally freed from the chains of the past and the body is recalibrated back into the present moment, they look back at their past and they won't want to change one thing in their past because it brought them to that moment. And they see their disease as their greatest teacher. They're no longer victimized by it. It helped them. They tell me, I would have never become this happy if I didn't have my condition. It woke me up. I'm a different person because of it. And so then that person stands on the stage, that the evidence is right in their testimony. I'm looking at an audience when someone's telling that story. There's 1,000 people, 2,000 people, everybody's leaning in. They're watching, they're listening to every single word that person is saying. They're holding on, that's hope. That's the truth right in front of them. That's somebody who broke through a level of consciousness or unconsciousness, and they don't look vegan. And they don't look buffed. And they don't look famous. You walk right by them. But I love when they put their hands out and they have no shakes from Parkinson's, and she can swallow, she can chew her food, she can blink her eyes again. She got the upgrade. She didn't get it from inside the virtual reality experience. She got it with frequency and energy. A person tells that story and people are leaning in and listening. Somebody invariably in the audience is looking and going, if that person can do it, I can do it too. And just like an infection spreads amongst the community and creates disease, health and wellness can become as infectious as disease. And watch out, and people become unlimited what they can do.
I could sit up here and go back and forth for hours and hours and hours. This has honestly been so fulfilling for me. And when I look around the room, I see leaders. I see people who are really affecting change in a big way. And that by first pioneering their own inner journey, they become a beacon of light. And everywhere they go, they illuminate darkness. And this work that you're doing is supporting so many people tap into that realization to truly know thyself. Now, as we start to wrap up here, I would just love for you to share a little bit more about what it means to be a true leader as we're building towards this new earth that we all can collectively feel in this vision that we all collectively share, and it has different flavors. But a true leader has a level of belief and conviction, irrespective of what the external circumstances are telling them, what the collective consciousness is saying is and isn't possible. But when you tap into the field and you feel that pure possibility, you know that you're the only limit and where you can go. And so I would love for you to share about your unseen vision, where you want to go in this lifetime, and then how we can all bring that forth too.
Gosh, I mean, I have heard there for the longest time that there's a coming of a new consciousness, and I really believe it's not one person. I think it's a collective network, it's a collective consciousness, and I'm fascinated by the principle in biology called emergence. I'm just fascinated by it. How do those schools of fish, those flocks of birds, how do they all move and behave at the exact same time? When you study that principle of emergence, you think that there's one leader that everybody's following. Turns out it's not a top-down phenomenon, it's actually a bottom-up phenomenon. Actually, everybody is leading at the same time. And so if you start thinking about the world, and the state that we're in, there's so many things are collapsing that really do have to collapse. There's got to be a greater way to do it. And I'm telling you, I'm going out on a limb here, but no healthcare plan, no government, there's no one's going to take care of us but us. And the best thing that we can do for each other is show up as the ideal for one another. Be exactly that person every day. Show the world what love does. Show them when you walk from your car into that store, you walk in grace. You show them what it looks like to be noble. You show them what greatness does. You show them how to forgive. You show them how to use their mind to have reason around things. If you're listening to information and it's going past your brain and you're not aware of that information, and somebody's telling you can have projectile vomiting, sudden loss of consciousness, homicidal, suicidal tendencies from the drug you're about to take, but ask your doctor if it's okay for you. If you're accepting that information as normal, it's programming you. We got to be really careful about the information that we let in. And I'm telling you that there is a greater consciousness than the consciousness we're currently living in as a collective. And that consciousness has everything to do with you and I, that everybody has to lead. There's a stigma in the world that if you lead with too much passion, you get it in the end. Every charismatic leader paid the price. But if everybody's leading, you just can't take out everybody now, can you? So for me, I'm a mission-driven guy. I'm no different than any of you. I just love God. I just love the unknown. I love evolution. I love the mystery of life. I love making time for that process to experiment. I think that leadership really comes from the highest form of motivation, and that is duty motivation or mission motivation. I think that when people have a vision that's bigger than themselves, they have a great reason to get up in the morning. And so my interest is really to demystify the process of personal change and transformation so that people have within their reach the tools to prove to themselves that they're the creators of their lives. And to empower them to actually believe in themselves. And God, when we believe in ourselves, we have to believe in possibility. And if we believe in possibility, we got to believe in ourselves. And experiment with the process. So I'm mission-driven. My desire is to contribute in some way to the world that removes some veil, that changes a person's life, that gives them another opportunity, that they come back from the virtual reality into the virtual reality experience with a new body, an upgrade in their body, a whole new life, a whole new environment. They're in a whole new future in time. They're not in the same future they were beforehand. And so I think mission-driven ideas are selfless ideals, I think. But falling underneath that is kind of personal conviction. And it's still a high form of motivation, but I think people who have a mission will have personal conviction. Then there's kind of ethics and morality and good and bad, and a lot of organizations are running that polarity and duality, but not a high form of motivation. But if you have a mission, if you have personal conviction, I think you make real good choices with a sense of ethics. And then, there's recognition. People do things to get recognized. And it's not a very high form of motivation, but if you're making a difference, it comes. It just is a side effect. And then, of course, the most selfish form of motivation is money motivation. And so I'm so happy that is finally changing in the world, that people want meaning. People want meaning. People want the truth. People want to know. My goodness, we are alive. We are in three-dimensional reality. Set down your technology and open your focus to the night sky. Bless your beautiful heart. Bless your beautiful body before it goes to bed. Give thanks for life, and you get another day. Try it out in some way and see if your changes that you're making with yourself are changing others in your life, not by you espousing any philosophy like you need to shorten your response emotionally, none of that. By showing them who you are, showing them what joy looks like, showing them what greatness looks like. I mean, I'd rather hang out with those people that have healed themselves. I'm blown away, people with ALS, tumors all over their body. I'm in awe. They're my heroes. I want to know what they know. I want to know their journey, what took them to that point where they finally had their moment. All of those testimonies that we have, all of the scientific research we've done shows that evidence really is the loudest voice. It really is the loudest voice. And I think this is a time in history really where we have to really every single day make that conscious effort to demonstrate exactly what we want to see changed in the world. And it's not anything new, but I think the moment you decide to say, I believe this stuff works, I believe it works. So many people have said when they were diagnosed with a health condition, I believed it worked, I just didn't believe it worked for me. Ooh, that's a big moment, because now you're out of the bleachers and you're on the playing field. This isn't philosophy anymore, you're in the game. And the game is, you got to stay conscious and you got to stay aware and you got to change. There's so many people, they did their meditations 2-3 times. And one day when I talked to them, muscular dystrophy, I've never heard of anybody heal from muscular dystrophy. This guy walked out of the event. He never missed a day. He never missed a day doing it. And I asked him, why did you do it 3 times a day? He said, because I kept returning back to my disbelief. And I instead of staying there, I went back in until I could feel it, and I could feel the belief, and I embodied it. And I got up. I got up as if it already happened. Whew. Keep doing that. You keep signaling the body. You're knocking on the genetic door. He had his moment. He got lit up. It wasn't matter that was changing matter in that moment. It was energy that was changing matter. And so all this philosophy, all this theory is really a time for us to apply it, to practice it in some way. Experiment. Say, hey, I'm going to take time out of my life to try it out, just to see if I'm actually a creator. And if it doesn't happen in 2 weeks, you're not that good. I don't know what else to say. You're not that good. Try again. Keep trying. And keep practicing and keep filling your brain with the right information. There are people in our community, they can go in the gamma right in front of the scientists. They go right in, the scientists say, how do you do that? And they say, it's really hard not to. They just know how to do it. They wouldn't miss that moment. Being uncomfortable and being okay with it, stepping out of the known into the unknown, is believing in yourself. And it's so important. That unknown is the perfect place for magic to happen. And we discover that we take people to that point and they can relax into that place. They are in a really good state for miracles. And we're demystifying that process. It's sushi time, I can tell.
That was pretty good. I think it's been so beautiful to see you on this journey of sharing this deep passion that you have and love for God, and seeing the healing shifts that people go through and awaken in real time. It reaffirms your own knowing that it's possible for everybody at any time, at any place. And so I think I could speak for all of us when I just say, thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, seriously.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm telling you, I'm in all sincerity, I have changed so much in just the last couple of years, in the last 2 years, witnessing what I've witnessed when it comes to people's changes, their healings, their bankruptcy, their wealth. I'm so transformed in witnessing people change. I never thought that I would have conversation with scientists. And the conversations that we're having are incredible conversations about possibility. I never thought that the world would be so interested in so many wonderful ways to prove to themselves that they actually can create reality. This is all becoming so much less of a philosophy and so much more of a practical application. And I'm so humbled in watching people in a week-long retreat, show up every day in spite of I'm injured, I'm sick, I have a disease, I'm too old, I'm too this. They show up anyway. I watch them, on the walking meditations on the beach. The sun is rising and tears of joy are rolling down their face. We're studying those tears, by the way. There's information in there. And I'm looking at this man and I'm thinking, nobody's making him happy but him. No one's doing that but him. I watched people show up in spite of all their excuses. And all of a sudden, they start getting really worthy to receive because they showed up for themselves. And when you start feeling really worthy to receive, not like a sense of entitlement, but you know, the universe gives us what we think we're worthy of receiving, and that's when those wonderful miracles happen. And when they do, the first thing that you're going to want to do is give. I don't know how to explain this. You're going to want people to feel the way you feel. And that brings people closer together because you release oxytocin, and oxytocin signals nitric oxide, and your heart swells with blood, and it feels really good, and you start feeling whole. You feel so whole it's impossible to want. Our data shows that some people have 200 times the amount of oxytocin. Their heart amplitudes are 3 times higher than normal. And ladies, men too, if you can imagine that. What happened to my husband? Why is he crying all the time, smiling? I'm so mystified by this. Every single experiment we've done, and I can talk for hours about all the crazy experiments we've done, the twin studies, all kinds of crazy things. We took a guy that we paid him to come to the event. We put him in the room. He never heard a word I said. We put him in sensory deprivation, covered his eyes, ear things, sat in there, didn't know anything what was going on, just sat in there, didn't know it was meditating. We checked his brain. He was caught up. He was having mystical experiences. His brain he just got caught up in the energy of the room. What's possible? I mean, when human beings unite and have brain and heart coherence, and their energy starts interfering with other people's energy, weird and crazy things happen. There's energy in the room to heal. There's energy in the room for the mystical. There's energy in the room for miracles, and they're creating it collectively. So thank you so much for listening tonight. Thank you, John.